Hi, this is Dr. Arlen Myers. I'm President and CEO of the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, and welcome to another episode of SOAP Video, where we interview physician entrepreneurs and other healthcare entrepreneurs who are transforming the industry. It's my pleasure to have on the program today Dr. Anthony Chang, who is a colleague, friend, and in fact, business partner. And he's going to talk to us about what he's doing in artificial intelligence in healthcare. So, Anthony, welcome and thanks for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Arlen. Good to see you.
Sure, good to see you, and I hope you're having. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving. So maybe you could just briefly tell the audience what you're involved with and your background. You're coming to us from Irvine, California.
Right. So I'm a practicing pediatric cardiologist and have always had an interest in statistics and mathematics, and decided to go back to school to get more education on data science and artificial intelligence about a decade ago, when I saw sort of this wave of technology becoming available, and like to bring it into medicine and healthcare.
So you were pretty far ahead of the curve when you started all of this. What was it that, what was the inspiration for doing all of this? Why did, of all the things you could have been and could have been involved with, why this?
Well, it's a funny story because I give talks to different groups, including pediatric cardiologists, about sort of coming trends. That's sort of like my DNA, to give talks. And I was asked an audience question, what would be, this is about 12, 13 years ago, what would be coming trends in pediatric cardiology? And I said, well, I think precision medicine, any aspect of genomics. And I said, I feel lucky to have a molecular bio background to sort of be ready for that change. I think the second was more attention to being an entrepreneur and financial aspects, incentives of practice and administration. So I said, I feel like I'm adequately prepared, having gone back to school, a decade before that, or two decades before that. I said, my only regret is, I think the third area would be managing data, using data to improve care, data science. Back then, we weren't even really calling it artificial intelligence yet. And I said, my only regret is I'm a little bit too senior to go back and really learn this new movement of using data in a more meaningful way. And then at the end of the talk, one of the junior attendings came up to me and said, Dr. Chang, I'm kind of disappointed in you. And I said, well, this is something I said. And she said, well, you're known in our field to be the one person that is going to be exploring a new area. And she said, if not you, who's going to do that? You sound so optimistic about that area. So I call that circular mentoring, because I mentor her about career changes and including entrepreneurialism. And then she's mentoring me back about, you shouldn't just say you're too senior to do anything. You should keep going.
So you did it on a dare.
In a way, I wish she's out there, knowing that I've really taken her sort of friendly advice to heart, and I actually did go back to school for it. I'm sure she knows now, because I'm doing an AI and cardiology book, so she'll know about it soon enough. But right. It really was great to have someone say, sometimes as we talk about, Arlen, is other people will point out something about you that you really don't know or don't notice.
So you've been at this for a while now. In fact, how long?
Well, the area of data science and AI, more than 10 years.
Right. Yeah. So over the last 10 years, obviously we've seen a lot of hope and hype around AI and confusion about what it means and blah, blah, blah. But that aside, what makes you most excited, or where do you see the biggest opportunities, or have you seen the biggest opportunities, for example, in the last 10 years versus the short-term, intermediate, or long-term horizon?
Well, I'm starting to see the beginning of this transformation. And I think 10 years ago, when I gave talks on this, I used to have doctors line up from the audience wanting to say things like, are you trying to replace us? Do you think AI will be better than doctors? Almost, there's a lot of emotional content. And now it's more curiosity when I give talks. How do we incorporate this? How do we adapt? So I see the tipping point slowly, but I think we still have another 3 to 5 years to go before we have wide enough adoption for more meaningful dividends. But I'm starting to see dividends in at different places with projects. And I think most doctors are still not cognizant of some of the capabilities that we have now. So it's just going to take time and education, as you know.
So what do you see as the biggest barriers to widespread dissemination and implementation of artificial intelligence in healthcare?
I think the biggest adoption issue is probably still comes down to education and accepting a slightly different culture and mentality looking at solving clinical problems amongst the clinicians. And then amongst the hospital C-suite members, it's more, again, education and how this can automate aspects of their administration burden. And, no one is sort of in a position to say, this is absolutely the way to go. And among the C-suite executives in the hospitals, and actually demonstrate cases of that happening. But I think people are starting to notice that it can make a difference.
So some people have characterized what you said as sort of trust, culture, and education. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the things that you're doing to overcome those barriers? Because you have a pretty extensive portfolio of stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do and people like you are trying to do to overcome those barriers?
Yeah, I think clinicians and hospital leaders are, they're in different tribes, and it's hard to enlighten or educate the tribes without knowing their culture. So I think when AI experts and data scientists talk about some of this methodology and technology, it's hard for them sometimes to relate, or oftentimes I should say, relate to hospital leaders and clinicians. So I try to be the intermediary between the two groups, sort of being the translator of technology that's applicable, and try to change locally and globally, right? So at our hospital, I launched an institute to focus on AI deployment and technology in our hospital. And now we're routinely doing state-of-the-art projects with our team of data scientists. And then nationally and internationally, trying to promote awareness and education on artificial intelligence by having webinars and educational platforms, as well as the new American Board of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine that you're part of the faculty for. And I think that's raised a lot of attention and awareness, because now there's sort of a validation and a certification process that you can get with education to really just kind of formally get into the knowledge realm a little bit more.
So if viewers want to learn more about the American Board of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine, can you tell us a little bit more about that? I mean, what is it, and what's the process, and how do you do it, and all that?
Sure. So I took about a year and a half or so to distill all of my class notes from my 4 years of education into a textbook of about 500 pages. I know it sounds daunting, but I think it's pretty readable. It's explaining a lot of data science and AI from a clinician perspective, not too deep, but enough substance. And then I had 100 authors write different commentaries. And then I think hopefully with that being available as sort of a convenient curriculum, then we kind of deconstruct a 2-day review course into about 50 modules to basically learn all these small topics, and then put it back together in a way to, I think, empower anyone, including students, to really get involved in this area in one way or another, either in the form of a project or lead a movement in your hospital.
So you and I have been preaching the gospel of physician involvement in technology development, and particularly early stage. So when it comes to designing, deploying, developing, disseminating new technologies, whatever they may be, in sick care, particularly in artificial intelligence, we're encouraging physicians and other health professionals to get in the game early on. So can you talk to us about where are the opportunities for health professionals to get involved in artificial intelligence when they have a hard time spelling it?
Well, I think just I know it sounds like everything's coming down to some education and awareness, but it does. I think once clinicians can see deployment and value, then they kind of become a believer in this project. And by no means is this easy, right? Because you actually have to, at our hospital, we actually have to have physicians be involved in the project design and see the dividends of data science to get to answers that they've been looking for. And we're trying to remove the friction in that process by having data much more available for access, and then for data scientists to help out clinicians with these projects. So I think perhaps some experience in this area, and then you kind of get to know the companies that are out there that are already formed. Perhaps you can serve as an advisor or even CMO, as one of our clinicians did, with just some understanding of AI. And then someday, perhaps even have your own company with a good idea. I do think the clinicians with some breadth of experience and knowledge in artificial intelligence can probably come up with better ideas than some of the company ideas I've seen out there.
You've been instrumental in voicing your opinion concerning the formation of artificial intelligence departments, be they in medical schools or in hospitals or hospital systems. And you were a person that created one of those early on. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and what has been the result?
Well, I formed an institute, not a department, but an institute to focus on AI deployment and education in our hospital, and also promote it nationally and internationally. So I think as a result, we started with 3 clinicians interested in this space. Now our monthly meetings, close to 100 people from all over, and now that's virtual, it's even more. We launched the Society of Clinicians Interested as a spinoff off of our monthly meetings. We have now been much more involved as a coalition of clinicians and data scientists to answer the call of clinicians that want us to help them solve a problem, a clinical research problem, or just a logistical problem in a hospital. So our issue, as you can imagine, is always having enough human resources to tackle all the problems, but our list is definitely growing fast. And we have a balanced portfolio of projects that deal with hardcore clinical logistical issues, like how do we improve sepsis detection, some of the ones that you expect, or prevent readmissions. And then on the other hand, we're into some very innovative projects like using deep learning to automatically diagnose different congenital heart defects, which I think no one has done up to now. So we try to keep the portfolio pretty balanced. If I had everything under my control, all the resources I need, I'll have 10 more innovative ideas of projects, but I want to balance that with delivering, sort of real time, real life dividends to the hospital as well. And we're even thinking about getting more involved in the administrative aspects of the hospital to help automate some of the processes, like revenue cycle management and pre-authorization for procedures. So those are all very amenable to sort of automated ways of doing things. And it's kind of like primitive artificial intelligence, but it's still some aspect of artificial intelligence.
And if you want to be an AI intrapreneur and create a center, an institute, a department, a structural entity within your organization, what advice would you give to those folks? I mean, if you knew then what you know now particularly when it comes to finding the money, the people, the resources, the time. What advice would you give AI intrapreneurs?
I think there's that French word that every entrepreneur probably know is called bricolage. It's just piecing it together. It's almost like MacGyver-like. You're not going to have the resources probably at the beginning. I was lucky that I found a donor that wanted to do something different than donate to the usual institutes like the Heart or the Orthopedic Institute. She wanted to absolutely do something that hadn't been done before. And I connected with her, and she liked the idea of promoting artificial intelligence. But I think short of finding that donor, right, and I was lucky I found her relatively early, then you have to, bricolage your resources and people together. But I think the most important thing is the people. Find a coalition of people. And I think you may know this rather famous TED talk or a clip on innovation and how the first person that got up to dance at a musical festival was just looked upon as a crazy person until 2 or 3 or 4 other people joined, and all of a sudden everyone's up on their feet dancing. And I think my movement here at my hospital reminded me of that. It wasn't until the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th people joined me that really got traction. So find 2, 3, 4 friends and colleagues that believe in your cause, in this case, artificial intelligence, and just say to yourselves, you're going to keep going no matter what. And the 3 clinicians and I that initially started these meetings about 7, 8 years ago, we committed to each other to keep this going, even if no one else joined for years. But it escalated pretty quickly, and we actually draw people from all over Southern California and come to our meeting. So I think it just speaks for having a champion, which everyone knows, but find the second ring of supporters as soon as you can.
And one final question is that there are multiple stakeholders in sick care, as we all know, but 2 of the main ones are the vendors, the people who are trying to create these AI products and services, and the end users. And typically those are going to be hospitals, hospital systems, people who want to deploy it could be payers, it could be employers. But there's often a problem with trying to find the right match. So if you're a AI company, whether it's physician-led or not, and you're trying to, you've developed your product and you need a go-to-market strategy to find the champions, to pilot the projects, to get them to adopt your technology. That's a tough challenge, particularly now when there's so many people knocking on the door, whether it's the CIO or the CMIO or wherever it's called. So what's your biggest piece of advice if you're an AI company or founder of an AI company trying to get traction or a pilot, let's say in a hospital system?
Well, I think, first of all, I think even before the company formation on an AI technology, probably the first step should be talk to a lot of doctors and stakeholders in healthcare, try to locate the problem that needs to be solved on a massive scale, and bring an AI solution. So it's sort of what I call design AI. You bring AI as a technology into solving a problem rather than inevitably a lot of people get together and think they have a clever AI solution to a problem that may or may not be serious enough or big enough for healthcare to be excited about. And I find that a lot in AI and healthcare companies, that they have a very narrow niche, and sometimes too narrow to be able to really sell that to hospitals as a solution. So I think one is define the pain points that clinicians and hospitals have, particularly in terms of payment, and then design an AI solution to begin with, then you don't have to sell it as much. And I think knocking on doors and talk to CIOs is very, very difficult. I'm not technically the CIO, I'm the Chief Intelligence Officer, because I guess my abbreviation is CIIO. People think I'm the one that makes decisions on AI services. So I get about 5 emails a day from people that want to sell the hospital an AI solution. So I think perhaps just spend more time figuring out what the problems are and how to design AI solution in the first place, I think is probably the best advice I would have.
Well, this has been great advice. If people want to learn more about artificial intelligence or how to get involved in some of your initiatives, where should they go?
Well, I have, as you know, several things in my portfolio, things that that can be helpful. One is the continual series, webinar series called AI in Medicine, or AI Med, and that's ai-med.io, and we have some activity almost monthly, and we're gearing up for our December series of meetings, and then leading to hopefully an on-site meeting in January of 2022. We had last year, as you recall, we had our big meeting, and we had over 600 people come to a meeting where clinicians can meet services can meet investors, and just been a great ecosystem. And we also launched if someone's interested in sort of a 2-day crash course, we have designed a 2-day comprehensive review course under the guidance of the American Board of Artificial Intelligence in Medicine, or ABAIM. And that's just simply abaim.org. And they can register for a course. It's a non-for-profit where the dividends from the tuition is, all part of that is given back to students in the form of scholarships. So we want to involve the younger generation as well. And we have a lot of faculty partly volunteering their time to support this cause. So we're very, very excited about that as an educational platform for everybody, but particularly clinicians, including the younger students.
And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention in your portfolio that you lead the Orange County chapter of the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I appreciate your time and your friendship and camaraderie and sticking each other every now and then, which is fun. I wish you all the best in Thanksgiving to your family, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Arlen, very much for including me in your very small ring of friends.
Thanks. This is Dr.
I just want to pay a public tribute to Arlen for everything that he does most of the time out of the goodness of his heart and making so many connections for everybody. And that's a rare gift that he has. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Arlen Myers. I'm at the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs at www.soapnet.org, and we wish you a happy Thanksgiving and see you next time.